culture news, sex, relationship advice, and interviews with special guests. With your host, Sean Nicholas. They're obviously lying to Fox News, ABC News, CBS, but you're not lying to us. Angelique Young.
I just want to see everybody catch a case because I don't think anybody would flip faster than a Fox News reporter.
Ivan Alexander.
You gotta be a special kind of stupid to think he was misleading. Let me tell you, flat out he lied.
Brandy J.
Like before DNA tests, so and so was really your father, but they weren't really your father, and the DNA test came out, and it was like.
And Dr. Christina Palin.
Even if critical race theory, some people think it's about slavery. So what? Slavery should be taught.
All right, so I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this. We are coming back. Sit back and enjoy the conversation. I just can't help myself from dancing. Like, I love that song.
That part.
Right.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Common Courtesy. This is our new season. We are back with more hot topics and more conversation. I am Sean Nicholas, your host and moderator. And next to me, just to kick things off, we have Angelique Young. Hey.
Hi.
And under Angelique, we have Ivan Alexander.
Hey, what's up, folks?
I see you. And
Angelique is making me sick. She looks so beautiful tonight. I'm sick of it.
Oh, thank you. I started us off right. First one back in the gate. I was like, there's no way I'm coming back without makeup.
And next to Ivan Alexander, and under me we have the Dr. Christina Palin. How are you?
Hi, I know you.
It is great to have you back, Dr. Palin. I miss you guys. I miss all of you.
We miss you too, Dad.
Oh, is that how you see me?
Thanks, you owe me Coke.
So just to get some things started, we have a lot of things to talk about. We have our former co-host, Courtney Elizabeth, here to talk about a conversation on domestic abuse. I saw that back in 2020 during the pandemic, America was experiencing a lot of reports of domestic abuse, and even before that. So I wanted to have a conversation, and Courtney's a close friend of mine. And even though, we never really agreed on politics, we shared a lot of things together. And this is something that I can't wait to talk to her about. And also as well with us, I have a counselor, which is one of my former counselors, Douglas Bonar. He works in domestic abuse with patients in that field. So we're going to ask some questions. So I'm kind of really coming out the gate with this first episode. I got a guest. I got an expert in the background. Yes. So we're going to start with our conversation starter first, just to lighten the mood. I found this on Facebook, Reddit ridiculousness. It reads this. I'm a Gen Xer, and I have a huge problem with how I am left with carrying the weight of millennials. For example, I'm 42 and my daughter is 22, and she decided a while ago she does not want to have any kids. She actually is getting a procedure for sterilization next year. But for those souls needing to come into our family for ancestral and karmic reasons still need to be born. So I'm stuck birthing and raising two babies who should have been born to her, but can't be because she's too selfish to have kids. We joke how my 1.5-year-old daughter, her sibling, is actually hers, but she just didn't want to have it. But deep down, it's not a joke. If she wasn't so selfish, I wouldn't have a toddler daughter right now. So, yes, there's a lot in that. It's a lot in that. I just kind of wanted to ask you guys. I don't know where to start with this one. I just want to ask you guys, is there someone in your life that that is that fanatically crazy and religious? Is there anyone that that maybe would do this? I'm going to go to Ivan first.
You mean like someone that's off their rocker?
Dr. Palin?
I'm like, so you mean like, do I know anyone that is that much off their rocker? Because she definitely.
She's missing a couple of marbles. I just I don't see how that, makes sense. I'm gonna have the 2 kids. She's not gonna have it. Angelique, you're working in the mental health field. Does this make sense to you? Have you heard of this?
This is the first time I have ever heard anything like this. I mean, I know that there is always a pull. I know that a lot of times parents want to keep the bloodline going. They want to have that. But I have never in my entire existence ever heard of somebody who felt the need to go have kids to continue their bloodline, because the reality is that what she did is that she could have these 2 children. They could grow up and each decide that they do not want kids, and she is right back to where she started. She's not progressing her bloodline by doing this. She's given it other chances, sure, I guess, but even in theory, that doesn't really pan out for her. So yeah, I think there's definitely a misguided concept of pursuing the bloodline. Like, I have this fight often about children and legacies, because what about women who are born without the ability to reproduce? That it's not her fault. That's genetic. That's like life just gave her a bad set. She got bad eggs, bad fallopian tubes. It could be a whole bunch of different things that might cause her to do it. I've even seen situations where people lose their, have to have a hysterectomy due to car accidents or like severe.
Right.
So I can't imagine how somebody could put that much weight on one human being. And then also, you opened your legs, sis. You did that to yourself. You got nobody to blame. That's the fair it works on both ends. If I was your mama or your daughter, that's your choice. You chose to spread your legs and have a kid. That's you. That ain't got nothing to do with your child. Leave your child alone.
I mean, the bigger conversation kind of goes. Oh, go ahead, Ivan.
I'm gonna say this real quick. So she's 42. Her first daughter is 22.
Mm-hmm.
I think sterilization could have happened before she had that 1.5-year-old toddler, okay? Because there was no reason for her to bring this child or some other kids into this world with her mindset. And whatever she's smoking, she needs to share it. I'm just saying.
Oh my God, no.
Nobody. I mean, the bigger conversation that we're probably gonna have later is like, they're saying millennials are choosing to have less children, and just to go this far. I mean, I'm like, lady, you need some help. You need to be on Dr. Phil. Please come on this show so we can talk to you and, see what's going on. Because all I see is that this is going to be a mental health situation in the future. Because, telling this child like, oh, you know what, you should be your sisters, but she didn't want to have you. Like, thanks,
yeah, that's
Mom.
messed up.
Anyway, all right, guys, we're going to take a small little break. And after that, we're going to bring Courtney on. Go ahead and relax and pour yourself a glass of wine. Common Courtesy will be right back with more conversation on the latest trending news, hot topics, sex, love, relationships, and more. Stay tuned. Like we were saying earlier before, domestic abuse has risen last year, especially in the 2020 quarantine. And here to share her story with us is our old co-host, Courtney Elizabeth. Please welcome to our panel.
Yay!
Yay! And also
that face, yes.
And also joining us, listening in, is a licensed medical health counselor that works in this field. We have Douglas Bonar. Yes.
Welcome.
So first, we're going to have a conversation with Courtney and ask her some questions because she was with our show, and personally, she left the show because she was dealing with some things. So Courtney, I don't know where to begin because we're close friends. So how did this begin for you?
Like, how did the whole situation begin, or how did it begin?
Yeah, because I know you. I know you and Kyle, and you don't really see things in the future. Was it always? Were you always going through abuse with him? Was it a gradual start?
No, I was all the time, and it was something that I was willing to, I guess, accept. because we had kids and we fell in love and had a baby so soon. He was a combat veteran, so he had PTSD. I was a veteran. I understood PTSD. I understood TBI. I learned more about it as it progressed, just to try to be helpful, to try to learn how to cope with these things when they came. Um, the years that progressed in our marriage turned into less of it being a PTSD issue from combat and more of being a psychological mental issue that stemmed further back into his childhood. Um, and it was I was raised that divorce is wrong, that, you know, you stick it out, you deal with this shit, and you keep going and you push, and it's for the kids and it's for that. And I did it for a very long time. And it wasn't until we moved to Florida and things really kind of started to change a little bit that I realized that, you know, this isn't the person that I want to be. I found myself looking in the mirror and just like not recognizing that person staring back. I'm like, who the fuck am I? I didn't want to tell people Florida was a fresh start. I didn't fucking know a single soul from Adam over here when I moved here. And this was my fresh start. And I found myself lying to people. I found myself covering up. I found myself drinking so much just to drown the pain and to like I'm having fun with myself. But in reality, I was finding that happiness being a little too drunk by myself, and just like that's how I fucking dealt with it, and it became a vicious fucking cycle. And the people who were close to me really saw it happening, and you know, they would constantly tell me like, how long are you going to let this happen? How much more are you willing to put up with? Like, I was fucking humiliated day in and day out, and it was so much anxiety introducing him to new people, new coworkers, new friends, people that I was like, I fucking love this person. I cannot wait to hang out with them. And then I bring his bitch ass over and he fucking ruins it, like makes a total ass of himself. And I'm like, cool. Like, yep, humiliated again. Just fucking stellar.
Right. So
Yeah.
so you say that Kyle's an alcoholic, correct? Or do you think
I would
feel
say
like
like borderline. He can go without alcohol. Alcohol is
it's a
definitely,
problem?
yeah, it becomes a problem. And sometimes he's fine, sometimes he's not. But when you put alcohol in the mix, that motherfucker is a loose cannon. That's a bull in a china shop right there, and he will destroy everything that he touches.
I mean, I don't want to like start crying because I just kind of remember, you know, meeting you and first meeting him at that. We had a Christmas party, right? And that whole fight happened. Do you remember that? At Dr. Barbecue, we were at a one night stand and this whole fight happened, you know, and I remember you introducing me to him. And I do feel that anxiety now that you're talking about it. And even I remember the one day when you first opened up to me, you were crying and no one asked you why. See, we live in a society where sometimes we think it's okay to like ignore things, but I saw you start crying and I'm like, what's going on, you know? And then we talked about it and you opened up
I
to me.
that day that I talked to you, the night leading up to that was the day or the night that I gave up. And I kept fighting for 2 years, but in my heart and in my soul, I was done. And it was the abuse by him, and then it was the abuse by his father that really was the catalyst in everything. His father actually sexually assaulted me that night.
Oh my
And
God.
like, yeah. And then Kyle he smacked me in the face with the metal end of his belt and left a gash on my eye. And you saw that, and I took a picture of it, and I still have it. To this day, they both deny that it ever happened. But I'm like, how are you going to sit there and allow your dad to come into our bed and touch me multiple times after I tell him to get the fuck out? And then you're going to tell me that I need to fuck off when I tell you to get him out of the bedroom, and then throw a belt in my face or smack me with the metal end of your belt. And then he told me the next day, he's like, I want a divorce. And I'm like, say less, bitch. Bye. But I stayed
Okay.
like an idiot. I stayed like an idiot, but there was a reason for everything.
No, I think everyone's going through this. We all have our reasons. Because you were on this show. You were on this show with us for about a year and a half, I believe. You started when you first started. You said you want to talk about domestic violence back when Supergirl, Melissa Benoist, she was talking about intimate partner violence, and we spoke about that. And then, my father made a comment once, and that's when I was talking to you, and you left the show. You were drinking a lot, and I didn't know, that this was still going on with you. I'm so sorry. So anyways, just the last question before we ask Douglas any questions. So you decided to leave. So what are you doing now? Where are you're no longer with him, you're no longer with Kyle, and you moved on. I see you have a better life right now.
I do. I'm fucking killing it. I'm being honest. Like, I'm fucking killing it. Like, I have an amazing job with amazing people. I fucking love my job so much. I have an amazing man in my life who is such a fucking godsend. Jesus Christ, where was he hiding my entire life? Because I never thought that somebody could love the way that he does. Holy shit. Am I not like the best thing that ever happened to him, according to him? I'm like, bullshit, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. It's like I'm happy. I feel like myself again. I feel me again. And I drink to have fun now. I don't drink to drown my pain ever. We socially drink, and it's not an issue. It hasn't been an issue for like 9 months now. I'm fucking great. And my divorce papers should be served here very soon. But I'm blocked, so he won't see that. But they're coming.
Well, Courtney, I'm gonna go to the panel real fast to to Ivan and Dr. Palin and Angelique before we take a break and talk to Douglas. Ivan, let me go to Ronnie first. Angelique, let me go to you first. Sorry, we're friends, and I never heard
it's
a lot about this
okay.
story.
I am 1000% proud of you. It's a domestic violence and domestic abuse, and staying in situations that are unhealthy for you are something that's really hard to get out of. So kudos to you for that. I'm proud of you for speaking about it, because if we don't talk about it, people don't know about it. Thank you for sharing it with us specifically. I think it means a lot more. I, for the first time in my entire career in this particular podcast, am at a place where I'm just speechless. I love hearing your voice, so joyful, and you look absolutely stunning right now. It's a completely different person. I don't even know who this beautiful woman is in front of me, but I'm so glad to meet you again. I feel like maybe this might even be the real you. I love you so much. That's all I can say right now. I'm sorry.
It is me again.
Sorry, okay. Here we go. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Palin and then Ivan, really fast, and then we're gonna take a break.
So yeah, I had, I you, Courtney, probably a year ago, and I think we were on a couple of sessions, and it's what really struck me in your story is that it is so important to know that even it happens to the stronger people as well. It's not just the weak and the meek that it happens to. And I know just from knowing you, even during the time now that I find out that you were going through that, and just meeting you the first time, I knew that you were a strong woman. And look, it happens, to the best, to the strongest, to the weakest. So I think for that reason, it's very important for people like you, especially, to share to share this, because most people, when they meet you, they wouldn't think that you would allow yourself to subject to that. And that is totally the wrong way of domestic violence, because it's not about letting yourself subject yourself. It's just about all these, multi factors that come together that, makes people make the decision to stay, and so so I think for that reason, I feel like we have a stigma of domestic violence happening only to people who are, poor, homeless, or just not having the resources, not having the self-confidence that you portrayed, but it's totally untrue. So thank you for sharing that story. That's very, very important for everyone.
And then Ivan.
Well, I definitely think it's important to share. I know we never had a chance to co-host anything, and I know from what I've seen of you, it's shocking. And I'm sitting here in total awe, going, "Wow, that you went through all that," and I'm glad you came through it. But it's also really important that you do get that story out there because, like Dr. Phelan said, there's a lot of people out there who you don't know what they're going through, and the facade they put on is just to make sure they can get through their day-to-day basis. So, definitely proud of you. Glad you're in a better place at this point. A very important story. It needs to be put out there. And again, shocking, but you seem to be in a much better place. Prior to the show, you had a little kiss on the forehead. So we know you got your new boo thing. But yeah, I'm just glad you've bounced back and you're very resilient. And nobody knows what you're going through or until you're going through it yourself. So you can be on the outside being a Monday morning quarterback, whatever it is. But until you experience it, you don't know the reason why this person is staying in a situation that you would think they never should have been in to begin with. So kudos to you, kid.
And Nick is hot too, by the way. I'm just gonna say it.
I know, right?
He's fine. I was like, okay, hey, daddy. Okay, here we go.
I know, right? No, but if I could, just like anybody who's watching this, like, for me, it was humiliating, and I hid it from a lot of people. My family knew. It got to the point to where I just stopped happening because I was just fucking humiliated. If you are going through anything, tell somebody. Like, it doesn't mean that you're going to make that decision right now, that you're going to go ahead and just walk away from that situation. There might be underlying factors. There are children, mental health issues, whatever it may be. If you are in that place, talk to somebody. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger, if it's your neighbor, if it's a friend, a parent, a sister, whatever it may be. Talk to somebody and start that conversation with somebody. And always, always, always never forget to remind yourself that you are never alone. There is so many people out there, just like all of you guys said about me. Like, I hid that shit. I hid it. Like, people knew the tip of the iceberg. And I will say it here first, but we'll be able to know my entire story in the coming years.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to talk to Douglas. We'll be right back. We're taking a small little break. We'll be right back after these messages. Follow our podcast page, Comic Jersey TV, here on Facebook and YouTube for more conversations on love, sex, relationships, and commentary on the latest trending news. And listen to us on multiple podcast platforms via comicjerseytv.buzzsprout.com. All right, so we just talked to Courtney and we had a very eye-opening conversation about domestic abuse. But here with us now to get some more statistics and some information, we have Douglas Bonar, licensed medical health counselor, who is the owner of a Center for Wellness. Please welcome to our panel and the conversation, Douglas Bonar. Again. So
glad to be here. As a licensed mental health counselor, not medical.
Did I say medical?
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me. Sorry about that. Mental health counselor. So, Douglas, I've had a class with you, but let me ask you, if anyone didn't know anything about domestic violence, what's the first thing you would tell them?
I would tell them it's very prevalent. We don't recognize it. The story that we just heard from Courtney, of course, was very heart-rendering and very strong story. But what we don't recognize is what's called the subclinical presentation, that it could just be somebody being emotionally abusive, that's isolating you from family and friends, It's not always as obvious as black eyes and hurting so badly. It's prevalent out there. Unfortunately, we live in a society, a culture where it's not only been accepted, but it's been encouraged in many parts of our society. This patriarchy, this male dominance thing that we still see in our culture right now, that's pounding on our doors so heavily right now. And if you're not aware of it, just look at the politics nowadays, what's going on. This is really a pandemic of violence going on right now. And we've got to be able to look at this and say, hey, we got to live in equality here. This don't cut it. This is not okay. So, Courtney, thank you for your courage. Thank you so much for your courage, putting a face to it like that. We need that out there.
So Douglas, next question. So domestic violence. I when I was researching it, I saw this power and control wheel. What does that always play into domestic abuse? Is that
Pretty much. So power and control wheel is used as the dominant model in the United States in addressing domestic violence. And what it says is domestic violence is not just about hitting a partner. It's about the many ways we can gain power and control over another person. We can use emotional abuse to gain control over them. Intimidation, getting loud, slamming something down on the table or something. We can isolate and use children to gain power and control over another partner. Use money to gain power and control. So the power and control wheel puts it in this wider context. It's not just about hitting. It's much more than that.
Before I steal all the questions, let me go to Angelique. Angelique, do you have any questions? I know you're studying psychology, but do you have any questions?
I do. I think that an area that I didn't really get to learn a lot about in my studies has always been this kind of topic of abuse specifically. And I wonder, what are some of the, I don't know how to explain the question, but my basic question is, why do people stay? Like, what is it? I know you just spoke about like the leverage of like emotional abuse, isolation, social abuse. I know so many people who get into these relationships and they're not allowed to go outside. They're not allowed to have mutual friends. They're not allowed to be around certain people. I've experienced situations where people were not allowed to hang out with stronger personalities, people who might be the ones to say like, wake up, right? So what do you think is the reason that, someone might stay like I guess I want to know on like a psychological level? Is it like a personal issue that we have? Is it something that we like, experienced, or is it something else?
A lot of the reasons, it's multifactorial. As it says, there's many reasons. It could be money, it could be the children, it could be a personal wound, it could be what we saw during our childhood development. But we have to make sure that we're not blaming, that we're never blaming the person that stays. It's a bigger question of why the violence. We've got to continue to look at that. Why people stay, a lot of reasons, of course, very personal, deep reasons for many people. But we've got to continue to focus on why are we permitting this violence in our culture? So I just want to raise it to that standard of not why are you staying? Because that's saying like you're doing something wrong and staying. We don't want to victimize people that are already being victimized in this.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up, Angelique?
No, he pretty much answered both my questions. The next one would have been, and then like, should we focus on them? And you literally like, yeah, that's where we really need our attention. So no, and I think that in that aspect, I wonder, it's weird. You want to be there for the people like Courtney, who you love and who and you know that they're in pain. But it sounds like we almost have to pay some attention to the people that are doing the hurting, right? Like, I mean, I hate to feel empathy for somebody who causes pain, but in the same hand, I guess it's kind of it's a necessity, right? Finding out where that violence comes from, or where that torture aspect comes from, that constant need for control is I don't know. Sometimes I don't want to know the answer, I guess. So as much as I want to ask you, like, where does it come from? I'm afraid to hear what you're going to tell me, right?
We live in a violent culture. Unfortunately, we've got to recognize this. And our inability in the state to talk about critical race theory, to talk about the violence that we've been raised with. We live in a violent culture. We've got to put a face to this and recognize this as part of the culture that many of us as men grew up with this ethic. And unfortunately, the women have also grown up with this and have learned this, that this is what I'm to do to be a good partners. I have to take it. Stand by your man. That kind of thing that we've been hearing for years and years. This kind of ethic it's got to be questioned now. Where did we learn this patriarchy? We learned it in our religions. We learned it in our culture. We learned it in our families. It's all over the place. We've got to start questioning that. And it's okay to bring it out in the open. Let's talk about this. So thanks.
Okay, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Palin. Dr. Palin.
Actually, that was kind of my question. I mean, I definitely feel that institutions have to adopt a different outlook on this before it can be even, we can even see a decline in domestic violence, because I don't think we're seeing any decline, because it is this institutionalized image of stand by your man and, keep the marriage, don't divorce, just like what Courtney said, like she was raised not to get a divorce, same like myself, and she's younger than me. And I know that there are people even younger than Courtney who are still having that embedded in their brain. So, I personally feel that a lot of that comes out of religious institutions. Has there been any kind of, attempt to penetrate the religious institutions by people like yourself, like professionals like yourself? Are you aware of any attempts?
There are attempts, and they're being quieted, they're being suppressed, actively suppressed politically, economically, and all that. Sure, there are attempts. And I want to point out also, just like gotta mention this, that it's also about holding the batterer accountable. That individually, we have to take responsibility for the person that does it. We cannot blame the culture. We cannot blame alcohol. We cannot blame our parents and all that. It's also about us as individuals being accountable for our actions. As much as we point to the culture, which we need to look at as a variable in the religions, we also have to look at our own accountability. Yeah, it's me. I've done it. To be able to talk about that. Open that up too.
I didn't think about that, Dr. Palin, about, religious, people. And then I didn't know that you guys were actually going in to like talk to wow. Okay. So this is a lot. Ivan, let me go to you.
Well, I'm going to put a slightly different spin on it. Okay. So, of course, never, ever, ever do you want to blame the victim. Okay. So let's make sure we're not even going that direction. But the kind of way I want to look at it from the standpoint of a couple different anecdotes. Okay, so a caged animal doesn't know it's caged until it knows freedom, right? And a free animal doesn't know that it's free until it's been in captivity. So if you're the person who's being abused and you don't have the esteem, or you're never taught to have the esteem to take care of you and protect yourself, maybe that's part of how you got stuck into it. Not to blame, but if you don't know any better, how are you going to do any better? So my whole thing is it definitely has to be a lot more education. Has to be a lot more of, if are you willing to accept this? If you don't know you're being treated badly, how can you compare it to something else? So that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to put a blame on that part, on that person or the victim, but as a part of, you have to realize if you don't know there's a problem, you can't fix it.
But Ivan, that is inconsistent with the fact that it happens among the educated women, among the powerful women. I mean, as a physician going through residency training, being in a hospital as staff, as faculty, I've seen it at all levels. It happens to women that are, stronger than, your average women. So you can't say that, and they're educated. So, I think that it's something that is just the human interaction. Yeah, you can get educated in domestic violence, but it's going to happen until you resolve that need for women to continue to want to make it better. You see what I'm saying?
That's totally understandable. But there's women that are abused. There are also men that are abused too. There's the abuser and there's abusee. So the question comes to the point of, when does that abusee realize their self-worth? And again, I'm not trying to put this in a different spin to say this person's weak, doesn't know what's going on. It's easier, again, from the outside to look in and say, oh, well, you should have done this and this. You're not experiencing that. So if you have never been exposed to not realizing that you are worth more than you actually are, that's going to be part of the issue. I mean, I'm no doctor, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying this is my perspective. So I don't want to throw a loop too bad, but I'm just saying that's kind of like, it takes two to tango. Yeah, both parties have issues. The abuser definitely should not be doing what they're doing. But what part of the person being abused is allowing that to happen that they know or don't realize in order to get out of it? That's my question.
Well, let's ask Douglas. Douglas, what do you say to that?
Well, I think we should ask Courtney. She's shaking her head yes. I think she has the better answer than I can.
Okay.
I mean, that right there was a fucking fire under my ass right there. No, I understand how what he said could be misconstrued. I fully fucking understand that to every syllable that was spoken. Yeah, no, it is a lot of, when do you know that this is actually a fucking cycle, that it's actually a problem? When do you realize that? I think deep down, psychologically, you realize it before you're able to fucking process it. And it becomes a thing. At least it was for me. Because it wasn't like, I wasn't getting my ass handed to me like every other weekend. That wasn't what it was. It was emotional abuse. It was psychological abuse. It was physical abuse. There was levels of abuse there that part of it, I was like, that's not abuse. That's not abuse. Because abuse to me coming into the relationship when I was 19 years old was getting a black eye. Like, that was abuse, getting choke slammed. And then 6 years later, I was choke slammed on a concrete floor and got a concussion. And his dad sat there and laughed at me. And I'm like, okay, something is actually wrong. But he was drinking. He was provoked. And then it became like, for me, I came from abuse into the relationship. I already had my own issues that I had not fully dealt with. So going into that, it was, this isn't as bad as I'm used to. This isn't as bad as I'm used to. And then also coupled with that is, he's got PTSD. I can understand the PTSD. I understand the military shit. I understand what they go through. I fucking get it. Learning more, it was less of the PTSD. I could deal when he had PTSD and he had one of those outbursts. I could deal with it. Whatever he did during that was not abuse. That was an outburst. Being able to understand the difference between his PTSD and the violence and the domestic violence that was happening, that took years for me to really differentiate that. I never thought about it like that. And it was, I mean, I honestly, I don't know what it was that trigger, but there was something there where I was like, I'm worth more than this. Like, this is a fucking cycle and I can't do this anymore. And when I realized how unhappy I truly was and the things that I was hiding, little things. I wasn't hiding that I wasn't doing anything bad. It was, I couldn't tell him that I was going to go have a beer with Sean after work because Sean's going to try to sleep with me. Like, I was scared to tell him that I'm going to have a beer with Sean after work. And he would be like, oh, well, why are you going with Sean? What the fuck Sean's going to do? I definitely do not have the equipment that he wants. Like, we're just friends. Like, Sean's not attracted to me. Regardless, it doesn't matter if I was going out with fucking Jason Statham. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm married. You should trust me, your wife, and not worry about what I'm doing. I'm telling you this. And then it became, I'm working late. And I wasn't doing anything. I was going to have a beer with some friends, and I would have 2 beers and then go home. but it was like I had to lie about it or else it was going to be World War III. And that was bullshit that I should have to lie about this. I tell Nick, like, oh, hey, I'm going to go have a drink. He's like, all right, call me if you need a ride. Like, wait, what?
I think the possessiveness aspect of it is like insane to me. Like, I think it's always, at the end of the day, I feel like the root of it is always that possession, that constant need to know where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, the constant need to be able to control you. They can't control you if you're not next to them. You know, I see it so often in relationships. I work in a business now where I'm surrounded by women, and the phone rings and the text messages come through. Where are you? When are you coming home? Like, and you start to get the idea in your head that maybe something isn't so peachy keen. And now hearing this and having been, I literally was with you. I met this man. I had, he came to my show with the kids, like, and it was like, I mean, he had his apprehension, but I thought it was just because he was with the gays. I didn't think it was, it didn't click, what it was. Everybody's first time at the drag show is a little uneasy. You don't know what's going to happen. But, not to make light of a situation, but in all respect and all honesty, even us, we all went out. And when we came to the house that night, I was like, I thought maybe he was just a little perturbed because we was lit. We wasn't a little
We were late.
Sean, like, really crushed my finger in the window.
I got a fucking concussion.
Yeah, you got.
I was Charlie Chaplin in the fucking parking garage, and I got a concussion.
I told you not to skip. It was raining, and Courtney's like, "Oh, I feel like singing in the rain." It is this puddle, right? And I'm taking care of Angelique, and Courtney's like, "Oh, I got it," and she just—it was the scariest moment of my life.
Wow.
And I
didn't got it.
Oh. But yeah, but like this whole situation, like my point is that, like you can't, like no one knows unless you say something, honestly. Like even in the face of situations where I've watched people and I interact with them, I guess a question I have for you is going to be more or less along the lines of like, as somebody on the outside looking in, how do we offer our assistance to somebody? Like if we feel like somebody's in a situation like this, how do we help them? Because, if I get up and I say something, it's going to be a fight. This person ain't never going to let me around this person again. It's not going to be, it's going to be real sneak for us to be friends or for me to help this person if I start calling somebody out. I feel like that's never the better option. That's like the nuclear option is to go like, you're a fucking abuser, like stop abusing, like, start throwing out that word and people start getting hostile as fuck. So what do you think we should do? Because I find myself in situations now that I've looked at them or people who actually are, in my opinion, in situations where their spouse is a lot more not hiding it. They're very public with it. They're being very vocal out in public. They're vocal in front of people and friends and family and stuff. So like, what do you suggest we do if we want to help people? Like, how do we call it to attention without fucking everything up? It's like playing Jenga with people's lives. I don't like making all the bricks fall down. Like, what do you suggest?
I agree because even though I have my issues, but like Courtney, I've known about this with Courtney for I don't know since we've known each other, and it's what do you think, Courtney? And Douglas as well.
Yes.
I would say just if you think that you see something or if you know that shit's going on, just ask them if they're okay. Like, hey, are you okay? More than likely they're gonna say, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. Like, okay, well just know that you can come to me if you ever need to talk or if you get yourself in a situation help. Just know that I am not going to spill your shit to anybody. Whatever you say to me is said in confidence. I'm not going to judge you, but I'm always here for you regardless. Like, leave it kind of open-ended. Hint at the fact that like, okay, I see something going on, but like, don't flat out say it because it's going to be humiliating and they're just going to be like, I don't talk about. But yeah, just tell them, be like, I'm here for you regardless. And the amount of times I have a few people in my life who are very fucking nuclear and I love them, but it's one of those things to where if it's like, if you're not that person, that's like that person's best friend or sister, then it's like, maybe don't go the nuclear option and just tell them, be like, I'm always here for you. Because honestly, some of the people that I talked to when I really needed somebody to just like to vent to and to like have a new perspective were the people who said that, like, I see something they didn't say that they saw something, but the way that they portrayed it, I knew that they saw something. And it was like, hey, are you awake? Like, do you have a moment to talk? And then it was a long conversation, and dead ass, they never fucking brought it up again. They let me bring it up to them, and they would ask me like, hey, how are you doing? Like, next time I saw you, it wasn't like, hey, how are you doing? It was like, what's up? How are you? Like, acted like nothing was wrong, even though they knew that your whole life was literally a fucking like built on quicksand. And they were there for you, and they are still there for you, just to be that person that's like, you know, if you ever need anything, if they never come to you, they never come to you. That moment that they need to talk, they're going to know. That person's going to pop in their head, and they're going to be like, I should call them. I wonder. And like, they'll go back and forth with themselves, but they'll reach out, but always be that person that's like, you know, I'm here for you if you ever need anything. Like, make it no big deal, and they're more likely to open up to you, because if you make it a scene, then the last thing somebody wants to hear is your opinion on how you're doing something wrong. Like, they don't want to hear like, oh, you're wrong. It's like, yeah, we know we're wrong. We know that we need to get out of the situation. We don't know, and we're not ready. We don't need you to tell us that, because then we're just going to feel more guilty. It's, you know, I'm here for you when you need it, if you ever do. Like, very nonchalant, very nonchalant.
And then Douglas, what are you saying?
So I couldn't say anything better than that. We show our open heart, be able to empathize with people, be there. And it's like with men, if I see somebody doing something that's harmful like that, I'm going to make a stand. If I see somebody saying a racist joke, I'm going to say something now. I'm not going to sit there and pretend that this is okay, laugh along with the joke. So we have to have the nerve, the courage, the empathy to also speak up, speak truth to power. Don't allow this to happen. That we've got to have the nerve to address the victimization. The victim, certainly, with an open heart, with love and caring. If you know resources, look up the Spouse Abuse Center and maybe give them a little business card from the Spouse Abuse Center and say, here, I think you're in trouble. This number may help you in the future. If you're able to do that, or encourage them to go seek help, professional help, but also to speak up against somebody that is victimizing another. We need to have that kind of courage now. It's not okay.
And I would say that goes on both sides. If you see somebody abusing somebody and they think it's okay, it's the same situation. They may not realize that what they're doing is really screwing somebody up. So it works both ways in my book. I mean, I'm just saying, if you see it, say something that a person, more so to the abuser, because they're already out there anyway. Now, the person, again, who's being victimized would feel the shame, would feel the embarrassment, the whole 9 yards so much. But this boisterous abuser out there hardly thinks that shit don't stink. Call them on it and say, look, you know, dude, this is not right. What you just said was not cool. What you just did was not cool, whatever. And if we get fisticuffs, or, you know, we get in each other's face, so what? I'd rather do it to that person that's the abuser to get them to stop doing it than to have the abused person feel, again, you know, shunned or embarrassed or shamed or something like that. So I think it works on both sides.
Well, to piggyback off of that, though, I would be careful doing that. Addressing somebody who is openly being abused and addressing the abuser, it could fire back on the person that's being abused. I would be very careful, be very respectful, be like, hey, dude, like, that's not cool. Like, you know, whatever, like, keep it real low key, right? You know, and they'll, you know, and I've had a lot of people do that too, to where, you know, they'll talk it down and be like, no, bro, you're okay. Like, actually, you just didn't understand it. Like, whatever. You have to boost their ego too, like, kind of stroke them and be like, oh, you know, like, whatever. I'm just, you know, just calling it out as I see it. But like, try not to get into a fight, because when they go home, that shit might fall right back on the person that was being
exactly. You don't want to put the victim in more danger. So thank you for saying that, really. And a lot of perpetrators have been victims in their lives also. To look at them, they're in pain in some way often also. So come with the open heart to them also. They're the ones that are victimizing, but they have been victims in the past too. Many of them, many of the people I work with.
Well, maybe my approach came off
absolutely.
the wrong way. I meant to just, address them a similar way to trying to get inside to them on a subtle basis per se, not just go all gangbusters on them. That's what I was trying to project, because it may come back and the victim might give it even more trouble because something was said. So totally want to make sure we're on that.
Don't join the
people
violence.
watching this. Yeah, people watching this might think otherwise. Like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna go fucking.
No, it could backfire.
Chuck Norris
so
on their
definitely
ass.
want to make sure we cover that part. Yeah, because
a lot of people don't know, quite honestly. And to go off of what he just said too, is that a lot of the things that happen to people who end up being the abuser are abused growing up or have had abuse, and that's exactly what happened to my ex-husband. It was the abuse. He saw the abuse. He got the abuse. It's like. It's a fucking cycle.
It was normal for him.
It's absolutely normal for him. And to him, it's still normal because he still thinks that he did nothing wrong. And the problem with that is, and that's where the person who was in my situation, or if you are in my situation, is where you have to see, like, one, if you would bring it up to him or her and they don't come, like, they're not like, oh, I didn't know this was happening, or they don't try to make like active efforts to be better, then that's it. Because if they think, no, I'm not doing anything wrong, or they turn it around and they pull that narcissistic bullshit on you and they tell you that you're the problem. This was all you did this. I only did this because you said that. I only did this because you acted that way. I only did this because of you. Just call it, throw in your chips, throw in your towel, call it, it's a spade, and fucking walk away and save yourself so much trouble and so much fucking time. Because if they don't see it and they do not acknowledge the fact that they also have problems, because we all have problems. We all do. It's just the level of the problem that you have. If they cannot say that they have a problem, then that is a problem. Because I told him too, like, I've got fucking issues. I've got my own issues for you, me, and the rest of us. But what you are doing in this moment is not okay. And it was, I only did it because of you. Right. Bye. Absolutely not. No.
So this is going to be.
We see that dynamic. They minimize, deny, and blame. That's the three ego defense mechanisms we see most often. They minimize, it was no big deal. Deny, I didn't do shit. Blame, it was her fault. It was his fault. It was my parents' fault. They blame rather than be able to expose their own ego, their pain, their woundedness. Yeah, we see that.
This is going to be a conversation. This is going to be a conversation that's going to keep on going. We ran out of time. We got to go. I wanted to thank Courtney and Douglas for being here and sharing, Douglas, your experience, and Courtney, your story. We'll be right back. We'll be back next week with more hot topics. we were talking politics. We're talking pop culture. We're doing it all. We're going to have Crystal Voss joining us. Again, thank you to my guest and thank you to my co-host. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a good night. Follow our podcast page, Comic Jersey TV, here on Facebook and YouTube for more conversations on love, sex, relationships, and commentary on the latest trending news. And listen to us on multiple podcast platforms via comicjerseytv.buzzsprout.com.